The snow had been falling for nearly 12 hours when Officer Daniel Mercer first heard the call crackle through his radio. By then, the world beyond his windshield had narrowed to a tunnel of white. The highway markers were barely visible, their reflective strips flashing in and out of existence as wind-driven snow swept across the road. Trees bowed beneath the weight of ice, their branches creaking like old bones in the dark. It was the kind of storm that shut towns down, the kind people remembered years later and measured other winters against. Mercer slowed his patrol SUV and eased onto the shoulder, letting the engine idle. At 62, he had driven through more storms than he cared to count, but this one carried a particular menace, an unrelenting wind that seemed to search for weakness in metal, rubber, and flesh alike. Beside him, Rex lifted his head. The German shepherd's ears twitched, alert despite the warmth of the vehicle. Rex was 9 now, his muzzle beginning to gray, but his posture still carried the quiet discipline of a working dog. Mercer reached over without looking and rested his hand briefly on the dog's shoulder. "Easy, partner," he murmured. "Just another long night." The radio crackled again. "Unit 12, be advised. Non-priority report. Possible injured animal off County Road 17 near the old logging trail. Given current conditions, animal control will follow up after storm clearance." Mercer frowned. County Road 17 was little, more than a forgotten strip of pavement, cutting through state land. No houses, no lights, no traffic. If something was heard out there tonight, it wouldn't last long. He thumbed the mic. "Dispatch, repeat location." The dispatcher did, her voice tight and tired. Everyone on duty sounded that way tonight. "Copy," Mercer said. Then after a pause, "Any more details on the animal?" Caller reported a large dog, possibly a German shepherd, appeared injured, limping. Caller could not stop due to road conditions. Mercer glanced at Rex. The dog's eyes were fixed forward now, body tense, as if he understood every word. Before Mercer could respond further, another voice cut in, sergeant's tone, clipped and authoritative. "Unit 12, negative on response. Orders are to clear the roads and return to station. No off-road activity during the storm. That's direct." Mercer closed his eyes briefly. "Understood," he replied. He released the mic and sat there, listening to the wind howl across the hood. Snow rattled against the glass like handfuls of gravel. Rex let out a low sound, not quite a whine, not quite a growl. Mercer sighed. "I know," he said quietly. "I hear it too." He had learned, over decades of service, the difference between noise and instinct. This wasn't the restless energy of a dog tired of waiting. This was something else. "A pull, a warning!" Through the swirling white, Mercer thought he saw movement, just beyond the reach of his headlights. A shape, a flicker of amber. His heart thudded harder. Protocol was clear. Orders were explicit. At his age, with retirement only months away, the sensible choice was obvious. He turned the steering wheel anyway. The SUV crept forward, tires crunching through unplowed snow. Mercer drove slowly, carefully, following the barely visible curve of County Road 17 until the pavement gave way to packed ice and then to nothing at all. He cut the engine. The sudden silence was profound. Wind roared through the trees. Snow whispered against his coat as he stepped out. The cold hit him immediately, sharp and biting, filling his lungs with pain. Rex jumped down beside him, boots crunching in unison. "There," Mercer said softly. Not 20 yards ahead, partially obscured by drifting snow, stood a German shepherd. The dog was large, even by the breed's standards, its coat thick and dark against the white ground. One hind leg was held awkwardly off the ground, blood staining the snow beneath it. Yet the dog did not retreat. It stood its ground, eyes fixed on Mercer with an intensity that made his chest tighten. "Hey there," Mercer called gently, holding his hands out. "Easy, boy. I'm not going to hurt you." The dog took one step forward, then faltered. Rex moved instinctively, positioning himself slightly ahead of Mercer, alert but non-threatening. The injured dog let out a low, urgent bark and turned, limping a few steps toward the tree line before stopping and looking back. Mercer's breath caught. "That's not fear," he whispered. "That's direction." He hesitated only a second longer before following. The logging trail was barely visible now, swallowed by years of neglect and tonight's storm. Trees pressed in close on either side, branches forming a tunnel of snow-laden limbs overhead. The wind eased slightly here, replaced by an eerie stillness broken only by the dogs breathing and the soft crunch of boots. The injured shepherd led them slowly, deliberately, as if measuring every step. Mercer noticed then that the dog wore a faded leather collar, no tags, but well maintained. This was not a stray. This was a dog that had been cared for, trained. They came upon the vehicle almost by accident. Half buried off the trail, its rear end smashed against a tree, sat a dark sedan. Snow filled the broken windows. The trunk lid was dented inward, as if struck with force. Mercer's pulse quickened. He approached cautiously, shining his flashlight through the driver's side window. The interior was in disarray, seat torn, dashboard cracked. A dark stain marred the upholstery. Blood. Rex stiffened, nostrils flaring. The injured dog limped to the rear of the vehicle and barked again. Sharper this time, it nudged the trunk with its nose. Mercer swallowed. "This wasn't reported," he muttered. "No accident call. No EMS, nothing." He reached for his radio. Static answered him. He tried again. Nothing but crackling interference. The storm had cut him off. Mercer exhaled slowly, the weight of the moment settling over him. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about a hurt dog anymore. He turned to the shepherd. "All right," he said quietly. "Show me." The dog waited until Mercer was close, then pressed its nose insistently against the trunk seam. Mercer pried it open with effort, metal groaning in protest. Inside, beneath a layer of snow and debris, lay something that made his stomach drop. A police-issued evidence pouch. Mercer stared at it for a long moment, the wind whispering through the trees around him. The implications rippled outward in his mind, touching old rumors, quiet conversations, cases that never quite sat right. The dog sank down beside the trunk, finally exhausted, eyes never leaving Mercer's face. He crouched and rested a gloved hand on the animal's neck. "You held on," he said softly. "Didn't you?" The shepherd's tail thumped weakly once against the snow. Mercer knew then that whatever choice he made next would change everything. Mercer did not open the evidence pouch right away. Instead, he closed the trunk and scanned the woods. Suddenly aware of how exposed they were, snow continued to fall, thick and relentless, swallowing sound and sight alike. The storm had a way of making a man feel alone, even when he wasn't, and tonight, that isolation felt dangerous. "Let's get you out of this," he murmured to the injured shepherd. The dog tried to stand again and failed, letting out a low, frustrated sound. Mercer shrugged off his coat and wrapped it gently around the animal's hindquarters, careful of the wound. Rex stayed close, offering quiet reassurance, his presence steady and calm. Mercer spotted a hunting shack about 50 yards off the trail, a weathered structure he vaguely remembered from old patrols. He guided both dogs toward it, each step through the snow feeling heavier than the last. Inside, the shack was dark but intact. Mercer shut the door against the wind and clicked on his flashlight. Dust motes swirled in the beam. A rusted stove sat in one corner, empty shelves lining the walls. It would do. He set to work with practiced efficiency, using supplies from his patrol kit to clean and bandage the shepherd's leg as best he could. The wound was deep but clean, no tearing, no sign of infection yet. "This didn't happen tonight," Mercer realized aloud. "You've been out here a while." The dog's eyes never left him. When Mercer finally reached for the evidence pouch, his hands hesitated only briefly before unzipping it. Inside was a flash drive. Alongside it, a folded sheet of paper, damp but legible. Mercer recognized the handwriting instantly. It belonged to Officer Mark Delaney. Delaney had been a good cop, or so Mercer had thought. Younger than Mercer by nearly 20 years, ambitious, sharp. He'd transferred out of Mercer's precinct 6 months earlier after a sudden family relocation. No farewell party, no explanation. Mercer unfolded the paper carefully. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it back." Mercer's throat tightened. "I can't trust internal affairs. I can't trust command. I've logged everything. Follow the dog. Atlas knows." Mercer closed his eyes. "Atlas," he whispered, looking at the injured shepherd. "That's your name." The dog let out a faint huff, as if acknowledging it. Mercer sat heavily on a crate, the storm raging beyond the shack's walls. The room felt too small for the weight of what he held. If Delaney was right, if Atlas had been guarding this evidence, then someone had gone to great lengths to silence him. And now Mercer had stepped directly into that storm. He checked his watch. Hours had passed since he'd last acknowledged dispatch. He knew questions would already be forming. Orders ignored. Location unknown. He plugged the flash drive into his ruggedized tablet, shielding the screen from view. What he saw made his blood run cold. Video files, financial records, audio recordings, evidence of seized cash skimmed before logging, drug evidence mishandled, confessions coerced, names and badge numbers repeating again and again, some unfamiliar, some disturbingly close to home. One file showed Delaney speaking quietly into his recorder, voice strained. "They're using storm responses," Delaney said. "Remote locations, off-books transfers. If anything happens to me, Atlas goes to Mercer. He's the only one left who still believes in the badge." Mercer stared at the screen, heart pounding. Believed in the badge. Outside, the wind screamed like something alive. Mercer knew he couldn't stay here until morning. The storm might trap them, or worse, someone might come looking. He packed up quickly, lifting Atlas with care. The shepherd groaned softly but did not resist. Rex took position at the door, ears forward, every sense alert. They moved slowly back toward the patrol vehicle, the blizzard closing in around them. By the time Mercer reached the SUV, his limbs ached from cold and strain. He placed Atlas gently in the back, secured with blankets, then climbed into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. Mercer exhaled shakily and pulled onto the road. Static greeted him again when he tried the radio. Then faintly a voice broke through. "Unit 12, respond. Your location is unaccounted for." Mercer swallowed and keyed the mic. "Unit 12 en route. Vehicle malfunction, delayed return." There was a pause. "Copy," the dispatcher replied. "Proceed to station. Sergeant wants a word." Mercer met Rex's gaze in the rearview mirror. "I know," he said softly. "I know." But he didn't head straight for the station. Instead, he turned south, toward a small rural veterinary clinic he trusted, run by a woman who'd stitched up more carnies than most officers ever met. Dr. Elaine Foster didn't ask questions when Mercer arrived after midnight. Snow piled high on the hood. "He's lucky you found him," she said quietly, examining Atlas's leg. "Another few hours out there." She didn't finish the sentence. Mercer nodded. "He saved someone else first." Dr. Foster looked at him, really looked at him, then nodded once. "I'll keep him off the books, for now." Mercer felt a weight lift from his chest. By dawn, the storm had begun to loosen its grip. The world emerged slowly from white silence into pale morning light. Mercer drove home, exhaustion settling deep into his bones. He copied the flash, drive contents onto an encrypted device, and sealed the original away. When he finally reported to the station, the atmosphere was different, too quiet, too watchful. Sergeant Hale called him into his office immediately. "You disobeyed orders," Hale said flatly. "We had you flagged half the night." Mercer met his gaze evenly. "I made a judgment call." Hale leaned back, studying him. "At your age?" Mercer said nothing. An internal affairs officer entered next, a thin man with sharp eyes and a polite smile that never reached them. "Officer Mercer," he said, "we're opening a review." Mercer nodded. "I expected as much." What he didn't say, what he held close, was that the truth was already moving, already alive, and no amount of pressure would stop it now, because Atlas had chosen him, and Mercer intended to see it through. The waiting was the hardest part. Administrative leave came swiftly, dressed up in calm language and official paperwork. Mercer handed in his weapon and badge without comment, feeling their absence like missing limbs as he walked out of the station, for what might be the last time. At home, the days stretched long and quiet. Snow still blanketed the world, though the storm itself had passed. Mercer spent his mornings walking Rex through the silent streets, the rhythm of their steps grounding him. Atlas recovered steadily under Dr. Foster's care. When Mercer finally brought him home, the shepherd moved carefully but with dignity, tail held low but eyes alert. Rex accepted him without hesitation. The two dogs, sharing an unspoken understanding, forged through service. Nights were worse. Mercer replayed conversations in his mind. Faces, choices, doubts crept in during the small hours. Had he done the right thing? Was it worth the cost? Then his phone rang. A federal investigator introduced herself quietly, confirming receipt of the evidence. Her voice was steady, professional. "We're taking this seriously," she said. "Your cooperation matters." The investigation unfolded like slow thawing ice. Officers were interviewed, records examined. Whispers became headlines. Mercer was called in for a formal hearing weeks later. The room was cold, sterile. Familiar faces avoided his gaze. They questioned him for hours. "Why did you go off route? Why conceal evidence? Why not trust internal channels?" Mercer answered plainly. "Because sometimes," he said, voice steady, "the system forgets who it's meant to protect." Silence followed. Days later, the decision came. Early retirement, full pension preserved, no apology, no commendation, but no charges either. Mercer accepted the papers without ceremony. Outside, snow drifted lazily from a pale sky. Rex waited patiently in the car. Atlas sat beside him, alert and calm. Mercer started the engine and pulled away. Months later, indictments were announced. Names he'd known for decades flashed across the news. Careers ended, cases reopened, innocent people cleared. Mercer watched it all from a distance. On a quiet winter morning, he walked with both dogs across a frozen field. The air was crisp, the world clean and bright. He stopped and looked down at them. Two shepherds, one scarred, one aging, both steadfast. "All right," he said softly. "Let's go home." They walked on together, leaving a trail of footprints behind them in the snow.